You're now kicking it with Brother Smalls, and I'm here with marketing and brand innovator Chauncey Hamlett. How you doing, Chauncey?
I'm awesome. Good to see you.
You are awesome, man. And that's a beautiful homes. Thank you for inviting me into your home. This is amazing. That's amazing.
For inviting you into my home. My home is your home, my friend.
Wow. Did you hear that? Did you hear that, America? This place is amazing. Are you finished renovating?
Like I said before, and I always say, I'm never finished renovating. I'm a little obsessed with home renovation and design a bit. It's a little bit of a secret desire I have on things like that.
That's why I wanted to ask you. You're a marketing, I would say guru, but how has it always been marketing for you? Has it always been, that lane for you?
Always, I would say, not always.
Okay.
Actually, I was always interested in just consumers and how people reacted to things. And so I think, when I started thinking about, professions, I thought at one point, hey, I want to do marketing. I realized early that I wanted to do advertising and creative.
Yep.
And so I got into really understood what marketing was. I was like, wait a minute, you mean, it's a lot of math involved and,
Yeah.
but then ultimately I got hooked on marketing.
Do you have a philosophy as it relates to marketing or what you do?
Interesting. I don't know if I've ever been asked that question quite that way.
Okay.
But I do have a few beliefs and philosophies around marketing. But one thing I would say is, and it sounds a little cliche, but for me, it's super important. That's trust your gut.
Oh, wow.
And especially when you're in marketing from a corporate perspective, and you have a lot of clients, you have a lot of constituents, a lot of people you have to influence. A lot of times, the gut may seem a little loose, or it may seem like, hey, it's not fact-based. And so, I would say trust your gut, but you should always have the data and insights to back it up. Yeah. But man, it's something about your gut that'll never steer you wrong.
That is amazing, and it's so interesting that you say that. And I'm really interested about the times that you trusted your gut and it panned out for you, and the times you maybe you didn't do that. I mean, does anything come readily to mind?
Yeah, I think for me, most of the time when I've trusted my gut, it panned out, the right way. Okay. Now, there's things I would say within trusting my gut that I didn't necessarily go as deep from putting a rigor around understanding more and more. And I think, I could have been sharper on the approaches. But for the most part, I would say, that for me, I think that's a bit of my superpower is my gut. And I think as I, progressed in my career, learning how to, I would say, structure my gut feeling and bring the right people around me to ensure, and that's the other thing, right? When you have the gut is not, you just don't go off your gut.
Right.
You have a gut thought or a feeling, and then you bounce it off of people and you get feedback. Okay. So it starts to kind of mold and shape. Yeah. But you got to be open-minded. One thing is that you can't just say, hey, this is my gut feeling and that's it.
Yeah.
You got to, help people can help you shape your gut feeling around things.
Oh man, that's awesome. And we're just getting started.
Yeah, we're just getting started. And we're still trusting
America.
our gut.
Wow. I wanted to ask you, what's your inspiration? Like, what drives you? I mean, clearly, you've. What drives you?
It's interesting. It's changed over the years. I would say it's evolved. Initially, I think what drove me from a career perspective, or just to be successful, was I would say fear. That's just fear of not being able to come out of the inner city, or fear of not succeeding, or fear of not being able to provide. And then I think, as you evolve and you realize, hey, I kind of got this. I know how to survive enough.
Yeah.
I had to evolve, and really, it starts to become about people, things outside of yourself, right? And so initially I said it was about me and what I was trying to evolve to. Now it's about a lot of other people. And so how do I help people? How do I bring people along? How do I unlock careers? How do I help creatives? And so now, the drive is a little bit broader.
Right.
It's outside of just me, but I would say it's a bit more purposeful now.
Let's talk about that process. I mean, from entry level to chief marketing officer of major companies. Like, did you have that focus from day one, or it grew on you?
It's interesting. So, so my first, I would say, entry into marketing was Pepsi, and I cold called the chief marketing officer at the time. I told her the story too. Her name's Dawn Hudson. She eventually became the president of Pepsi, and then she moved on to be like the CMO of the NFL. But I cold called her, and she thought I was someone else. They put me through, and she picks up the phone, Chauncey, and she talks for like 2 minutes. I was super embarrassed. I was like, oh, I'm sorry, but this is not that Chauncey, but let me tell you, blah, blah, blah. And I started like talking for like 2 minutes. I gave my spiel, and she put me through. So, she was like the first chief marketing officer that I encountered. But no, I think, for a lot of people who are driven and younger, you just want to really, get to the top of wherever you can be. Mm-hmm. Then I think as my career started to go along, I said, hey, I want to be in a position in which I can unlock things. Mm-hmm. And that's really what CMO roles allow you to do. They allow you to look across your talent, look across the business case at hand, look across the creative opportunities, look across the categories, and you really start to be able to like unlock, really just resources, right?
Yeah.
Whether that's resources from a thought perspective, a creative perspective, or just funding, or, bringing agencies together, bringing talent together. So, it's a lot of power in that, mm-hmm. In the sense that you can really help move things further for a whole lot of people.
Wow, that's great. That's really good stuff. And so your focus, was a singular focus initially, but as you kind of learn more about the marketing, learn more about business, it broadened. What does culture mean to you?
What does culture mean to me?
Yeah.
So what culture means to me is, first, I think to be able to understand culture, I don't think, like, I would say, hey, I grew up in New York. I grew up going to, Harlem Week, and, seeing the different vendors, and and at night go out, I would go out and see the different cars, and the music, and the fashion, and the style, and how that influenced in the food. So yeah, I think for me, I would say, hey, I kind of grew up in a certain culture that mm-hmm. influenced me. Mm-hmm. But I think what culture, in order to tap into culture, I think you have to be incredibly humble and open-minded. And the more respect you have for various cultures, the more you're able to understand culture. So for me, I think, open-minded, humility, and just a lot of empathy, and just like respect, for other people's culture really allows you to kind of tap into it in a certain way. And then, of course, you bring your own stuff, your own twist along with it as well.
Right. Now, talking about your culture, you grew up in New York. Mm-hmm. All right. And I understand you also played sports, and that was a part of, talk about that a little bit. Talk about, maybe growing up in New York, and perhaps, your sports influences. And
Absolutely. Well, I played football, I played basketball, I played baseball. I stopped playing baseball because, by the time you got to high school, like, no girls went to the baseball games. It's like no one's at the game, and you're like looking around. And then I sort of excelled a bit further in football, but basketball was a love as well. To be honest, playing sports was just a major way of staying out of trouble. Sports was that first thing to say, hey, how can I just not make sure I'm not hanging out on the block? How can I, what way can I express myself that's, that we feel is progressive and positive? And so sports was that thing. And then even now, I still have a sports mentality on how I approach business.
How so?
If I launch a brand, and depending on the success, I feel like I just score 50 on you. That's 50. I ran back the touchdown. Matter of fact, I got 3 touchdowns in the first half.
That's right.
So I still have that mentality. I'm joking a little bit about scoring. I mean, sure. But it's not just about that. Also, teamwork, and leadership. I mean, it's the first time you get a chance to kind of depend on your team, have your team depend on you. So sports is extremely important.
Now, there's a competitive, obvious nature to sports. Hey, it's us versus them. Is that a part of your thinking also?
Well, yeah. When you're looking at certain categories, you're looking at market share, and you want to still share. You got to go get the ball. It's us versus them, and you got to figure out how do you do that? So it is a bit of that.
Okay.
But again, it goes back to, at the end of the game, you line up and you high five the other team, so it's still hey, we're all here for kind of one whole purpose, but you're trying to get the W. For sure. You're trying.
That's awesome. You've had a, really an amazing career, and you've worked with, the who's who of entertainment and business and sports. Is there a situation that comes to mind that really impacted you?
Yeah, it's interesting. So there's a lot, because when you just start to meet more people in general, whether they're celebrities or successful, you just hear more stories. You're just so impressed by that. But I would say one of the major impacts that landed big for me was when we were filming our Super Bowl commercial in London. The Super Bowl, the commercial itself was great. And, you hear me talked about Buzz Awards and things like that.
Sure.
It was the Fire vs. Ice, Morgan Freeman, Peter Dinklage, Busta Rhymes, Missy. First of all, I'm like, hey, I'm from New York, and I get to do a rap battle on the Super Bowl. Of course, that's so New York.
Yeah.
But the big thing for me was, as Morgan Freeman entered the set, he was being introduced to people.
Yeah.
And I was the only Black person really there from an executive standpoint. Wow. When they introduced him to who was leading it from a client perspective, he looked at me and he smiled. He was like, and they say this, he's like, Chauncey. Okay, Chauncey. And he was like, all right, brother, this and that. Proud of you, man. And the whole set, he just kept calling my name out. He kept going, Chauncey, Hamlett. And, you could just see that he was just extremely proud. This is Morgan Freeman, right? This is someone, you're talking about Driving Miss Daisy.
Yeah.
You're talking about God.
The voice of God,
The voice of God, right? right. So, you're talking about Rangers, right?
Oh, my goodness.
And, for him to be impacted by that, it had a big impact on me. So, those things like that, for me are incredibly important.
Man, that's amazing. That's amazing. Do you see, and I asked this question from a lot of different people in a lot of different fields, do you see the world from a marketing point of view? You understand?
I try not to.
You try not to?
I try not to.
Like I asked that question to physicians or to lawyers, right? or to videographers,
Yeah.
right? Do you see the world from that lens?
Yeah.
Do you see the world from
Yeah, I
that?
try not to. I think a lot of times it does kick in because, a lot, what you do, you're passionate about. And so it takes up a big piece of your brain power. But I think I see the world through people. And so it goes back to that thing you talked about, culture.
Yeah.
I like to understand people. I'm a people person. Like I love hanging out, chatting with people, getting to know them a bit. But yeah, I think marketing does, kick in at times. And
Yeah.
I think about, hey, if I'm eating at a restaurant, I try to think about how could this be, marketed better or this brand, this product. But I try not to. But it's tough not to when you're passionate about something. It's tough not to.
I can attest to that. I've known you for quite some time, and I can recall
Since I was a baby. Nice.
not that long.
Not that long.
Not that long. But the time that I've known you, you definitely have been a people person. I remember, you going to go see a friend or a family member miles away, hours away, right? Just to support them, and then turn around and drive another 2 or 3 hours. And I was like, what is this guy? It was amazing to me. That was amazing to me.
Yeah. I think, and that's a bit natural, right? That was natural at the time. I think as we progress on with relationships and, colleagues, we get busier.
Yeah.
So things like that, we got to try harder, and so I think I'm a bit more calculated now. Like it's not that it's coming from a non-genuine place, but stuff like that's so important.
Yeah.
That you got to make sure it's on your agenda to do. If someone's having something, show up for them. Because just supporting people is extremely important. So I still like to do that, and the way I approach life.
No, that's awesome. You've been like really successful across, in business and marketing. And what I was thinking about how varied your success has been, through like product launches from like Mountain Dew, Code Red, Blue Moon, Grey Goose Vodka, very different and distinct brands and promotions, but you've kind of had success in that. Is there a secret sauce? I mean, how are you able to do that?
Well, one thing that I've been blessed to have happen to me was to be around some very talented people.
Okay.
And I think the reason why I've been successful and I'm confident I'll continue to be successful is because I'm constantly learning. And not just learning, but then learning and applying.
Right.
Applying, learning and applying.
Right.
And then sharing as well.
Got it.
And so, I think that, and then what success is, people have different barometers of success.
Sure.
So I would say, success, you could turn around, and especially now that I'm really into like building teams and,
Sure.
and developing people and collaborating with people.
Sure.
Success is kind of how everyone feels afterwards, right? Now you always have like a business goal, but if you got to that business goal and people feel really crappy, then to me, that's not success.
It's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable either, right?
Right.
That's even the bigger piece, right?
Yeah.
But, you want people to feel good. You want to feel good afterwards, right? And so, I think this idea of really leaning on people and collaboration and how you get there is actually the main thing on how I look at things.
Wow. So you've had a lot of success, and when you look back at your career, do you ever think about, a product or a promotion or campaign that says, you know what, if I had to do it over again, I might do it differently. I might do this a little bit more. Maybe there was more value I could have got out of this particular promotion? Or you ever think about that?
Yeah, I would say creatively, yeah, you always look back and say, man, I wish I could have tweaked that. I would have done this a little differently. But, at the end of the day, like, the baby is the baby, right? And you don't want to, you don't want to change the baby.
Right.
But, and you feel proud about it. So I would say, like, from a creative standpoint, I would say from a business standpoint, you mentioned value. I would have done a lot of things differently. And so, we talk marketing, and yeah, I've always wanted to be this marketer, but sometimes you get so caught up in being a marketer or having a title or role that you're not as entrenched in the business aspects of it. Whether you talk about the raw cost of raw goods and the supply chain, and so you're not really tapping into the long-term economic opportunity of that product launch. And so I'm really driven by that now.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I don't ever want to forget the creative piece or the innovation, ideas like that. But I want to understand, like, where's the source of the product come from? What are the margins there? How sustainable is that?
Wow.
And so right now, I'm in, we know that I'm really focused on all beverages. And so versus, before, creating like a Douce Cognac, which we saw, Jay-Z just, sold a big portion of his, his business and his stake in the business for $750 million, buyout on that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I loved creating the packaging, the tasting the liquid and making sure that, the brand was hot.
Yeah.
But, now I'm like making sure that I understand, the cost of the eau de vie, right? Like where, where are the vineyards at?
Yeah.
How many hectares that source came from, and, what's the kind of long-term opportunity from an economic standpoint there? Or tequila, the business that I'm, jumping, I used to be in before, Corzo Tequila, but from a marketing perspective, now I'm understanding, okay, like, who are the farmers that's growing the agave? I just came back from Guadalajara, which I was down there by myself, with one of my business colleagues down there as well. And, I've been there before working for Corzo, and we went down there for meetings and we looked at presentations. This trip, I was on farms.
Wow.
I was in farms,
Yeah.
meeting farmers, meeting families and generations, and really understand that piece of it. So yeah, so I wouldn't necessarily change anything creatively, but from a business construct standpoint, is really where things have evolved to.
And I'm also hearing a theme of people, because in each, even like on the farms and getting to know how this is made and who makes it, it's still that interaction with people. Is still kind of understanding where people live and how they, go about their daily lives. That's really interesting.
It's all about people, right?
It's all about
that's why I love. Now, there's industries that I haven't really been tapped into at all, and so I can't really speak for those industries. I know in the beverage business, it's a people business, and I say that all the time. And so, if you don't like people, you're probably going to struggle in this business, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you got a great point. People are at the center of how I think about it. And this kind of being motivated by legacies as well.
Interesting. You said people, and I wanted to talk about something recently. In the past 2 or 3 years, historical Black colleges and universities have really gotten some amazing, just awareness around the country. Large part due to what Coach Prime did for Jackson State and other notables. But I recall that you were focused and deliberate in highlighting that excellence years ago as well.
Yeah, no, it's it's interesting because people ask me, all the time, or they assume that I went to HBCU.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I didn't go to HBCU. I'm from New York. I went to school in Connecticut. And the only HBCU we knew about HBCUs. I mean, we got recruited by a couple of HBCUs from a football perspective, but like we knew Howard, right? If you're from New York, you know Howard, you know Howard Homecoming, and so but we were, I would say, a bit jaded, at least in my circle, meaning that it was like certain schools
We didn't know about
or Ivies so we were like, okay, I'm not getting into that Ivy, so let me look somewhere else, right? But as I really, I would say as I started to move, when I moved to Florida first, and I started to meet a lot of, people in my professional life that graduated from HBCUs, I realized the impact that HBCUs, had and still are having on generations of people, and the amount of professionals and, lawyers and doctors and engineers, MBAs that, HBCUs are putting out there. I realized how important like that was from a culture perspective. And then we had the chance with Pepsi to lean in. I said, hey, this is a great opportunity for me to kind of tie all this kind of marketing knowledge to what, they're doing. And yes, so was able to kind of work close with Coach Prime and just the SWAC, conference as well. And, the band culture, Battle of the Bands. I'm very proud. We produced along with a couple people from the SWAC, and shout out to my guy Jabari Morgan and Cortez Bryant, my guys out there, Derek Weber. We produced one of the hottest band commercials out there, and we were able to highlight Jackson State, right? The sonic boom of Jackson State and the marching 100 of FAMU. And so culturally, like, oh my God, I didn't go to HBCU, but you get excited about that, right?
Without a doubt.
And so, and then, even with that, being able to produce and create a platform like She Got Now, which was focused on women, from HBCUs, both kind of, undergrad, grad, and also alum, and highlighting all the great things and the impact that women are having on society.
Right, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that was my next question about, you've been deliberate about, just diversity and having a platform for women and others, and encouraging diversity in the companies that you've worked for. I think the most recent one that you did was, I think it was Mary J. Blige, the...
Yeah. So, the Strength of a Woman Festival, actually, shout out to Mary, shout out to Shauna Ayers, Live Nation Urban. They just announced year 2. We were able to kind of jump in and help create that festival, with that team. And, for me, it's a bit of a no-brainer, not just from a brand perspective, getting, Pepsi involved with that, but also just from, Mary and women, right? So I grew up like a Mary fan.
No doubt.
My mother, she loved Mary, right? And so as you know that as well, like, her favorite song, fine, get out the way when that song comes on. So and so she always said, hey, she always wanted to meet Mary. She never got a chance to meet Mary. And so when I had a chance to sit with Mary and went to dinner, I was like, we're gonna make this work. So that influence, impact, had a lot. But when I had a chance to hear Mary talk about, her as, her perspective on young women and, girls and women in general, and how she wanted to ensure that she continues to be that beacon. I mean, for me, I was like, man, I'm all in. Like, we got to figure out a way to make this work. So that had women in general. So my mother, my auntie. I was raised by women. Aunties, big cousins. my very strong women,
Right.
you know, they would beat you up too, like, you know, like, you know, very tough on you, you know. And so, and to this day, I still, you know, I still rock heavy with a lot of women, and especially in business, I'm seeing, you know, the way that women are taking the baton and running with it. So, you know, we gotta, you know, we gotta help fan the flames on that.
Oh yeah, together everyone achieves more. I wanted to ask you. I mean, again, March is.
By the way, you know, I'm married to, you know, the smartest women in the world.
Okay,
You know,
yes.
just to be clear, you know, so that just to make sure you know.
Well, I wanted to ask you again, March being Women's History Month, to talk about a woman or women that have made a significant impact to you and your success.
Yeah, well, you know, I talked a little bit about just family and things like that. You know, I would say, you know, if I kind of just turn the table a little bit, you know, from a corporate perspective, you know, most of my successes, I would say, you know, that I really enjoyed was, you know, I worked for women, you know, and it just, you know, and so, you know, so whether I talked about the person, and even in business, so I understand where the power of, first of all, I understand the power of diversity, you know, and going to click further, but at the end of the day, I'm still a man, so being able to kind of, you know, and by the way, there's things that even though I'm a black man and, you know, you know, sometimes in the room, I'm a minority, but I think about women in general and how they must feel, must think about things. So it's very, you know, front and center on how I think about approaching business.
Wow. Now, you're doing a lot of different things. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you welcoming me into your home and for this interview. I want to talk about some of the things that you're doing now. Most recently, I believe you were a part of the Starry soda,
Yes,
launch.
yes,
Right? And
Yeah.
now you're also kind of doing some other things. But I wanted to kind of talk about that and then kind of get into some of the things that you're doing now.
Yeah, so as you know, I just recently you know, left Pepsi and started the Formulation group. But Starry was the last innovation that I led, you know, for Pepsi, and it launched the beginning of the year, January. It did, you know, 50 million in its first month of launch, right? Which is incredible. But you know, that one's special because of the target consumer. Well, first of all, no one creates new sodas, right? There's new flavors, but no one's creating the new Pepsi, the new Coca-Cola, the new Dr. Pepper, new Sprite. Like, so creating actual new soda is it was very interesting for me. The other thing is because of the target consumer being Gen Z, and I have 2 Gen Z sons. And so understanding and clicking down, we talked about gut feelings and data and insights.
Yes.
So, you know, you always have a gut about your kids, but then when you really go deep from an insight and research, then you see how that stuff starts to make sense. And so that was exciting. And then also brainstorming about creative ideas with my kids. So my kids, my family feel like, hey, you know, they created Starry too, you know, and literally it wasn't the name of the product. And we put the name out there and people are like, oh, that name's going to suck, this and that. That was a bit of a gut. I'm like, hey, that makes sense.
Okay.
You know, you know, the company actually like, you know, didn't go for it at first because, hey, that's just a gut. And then we did the backup insights and it scored top, right? So that's where you kind of mix your gut with the data and insights.
Yeah.
But my kids being a part of that and then seeing that actually come to life from a concept all the way to an actual product, all the way to an actual launch, and then seeing it in store on shelves. You know, and so, you know, so that's like a blessing for me. And then on top of that, what I even love more about my kids and how they're thinking about it, like, Dad, so you don't own a piece of that? I'm like, no. They're like, okay, we got it. So, which is now, the Formulation group.
Formulation group.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is, and so just to kind of go a bit deeper on the Formulation group, it's an agency, but it's strictly focused on beverages.
Okay.
And that was another thing. People were like, well, you're gonna do this. You're gonna do this new Apple Music thing, or again, I had the opportunity to kind of produce a lot of music content in the past and things like that. So no, we're focused on beverages. We're starting with alcoholic beverages first. But the Formulation group has sort of like two sides of it. One side is, it goes back to what you talked about earlier, is value and equity. So creating brands that we have ownership in, equity partnerships in, and also investing in smaller brands as well, which I'm super excited about. So that's one side. Then the other side, I talked about that creative piece that I never want to let go. We provide services to brands that are looking to help sharpen their positioning, and also, taking on a creative approach, whether that's packaging or, visuals and things like that from a content perspective. So yeah, we're excited. I mean, the plate's already full, and you quickly understand, hey, it's not necessarily about how much revenue can I quickly bring in. It's more about how can you manage your portfolio the right way to ensure that you are, bringing the full value to everyone you're working with. So that's really what we're doing now, just managing the portfolio relationships to ensure that, nothing's left behind. We want to just make sure everything's done with extreme excellence.
Extreme excellence. You're hearing it first from Chauncey Hamlett, brand and marketing innovator. Chauncey, I wanted to ask you about legacy. You've done so many different things, and you're now here in Atlanta. But I wanted to talk to you about legacy. You think about, your legacy and what you give to the next generation?
Yeah, I mean, a lot. And I think about what I've received a lot, and so I've been blessed just to have great people around me, including yourself, right? Especially brother like you. I mean, I think at, we probably met when I was 13, maybe.
Perhaps.
13, not a baby. You're 13, that's still a baby. But, that's a super impressionable age, right? And, you can get with all type of circles. And your circle, who you surround yourself around, is extremely important. And so I just want to say I appreciate you first and foremost. Thank you, brother. Yeah. And so and then kind of our community that we grew up in. And so we grew up in New York. We're in 914, so Newark Show, so it's a bit of a microcosm, and we had so much positivity around us, and people always in our ears saying, hey, you should be doing this, just do the right thing, do this. So just that kind of, so first of all, I feel blessed, and I try to pass that on to people. And right now, to me, being able to start the Formulation group to, unlock dreams for young people, Black and brown people, women, is like really what the main goal is now. And so that's the legacy. And then at the same time, allow, my family, my kids to be a part of it and see that. So, and I see it paying off again with the kids. Like they're starting their own businesses. Like they have brand names for different categories. Like, they're, LLCs that, so I'm excited about, that you see it paying off. But to me, that's extremely important. Like some people throw around the word purpose and, purposeful.
Yeah.
To me, that's really the driving engine for me right now.
Wow. This has been an amazing interview. Thank you so much, man. I got one more question.
Wait, we doing dinner tonight? How are we doing?
I think we're gonna do dinner
Yeah,
tonight.
my guy Marcus Samerson's opened up his new spot here in Atlanta.
Yes, sir.
Before you get the question, I have something for you.
Okay.
I have something for you. This is for you.
Okay.
This is how brands grow.
Okay.
Volume 1.
All right.
This, because of, your brand and what you're doing, you've put out, 2 books already. Maybe I'm sure the third's here. But as you go and you continue to kind of sharpen and grow your brand, this is a bit of the marketing Bible right now.
Okay.
I have this is volume 1. I have volume 2 that was just given to me by Fawn Weaver.
Okay.
Who she's like, right now she's our beverage god in the in the spirits industry as far as Black and brown people and women. So she's the CEO of Uncle Nearest. And so she gifted me volume 2, but they also sent me a volume 1, which I already had. And I said, okay, I have one. I said, you know what? I want to buy it now. I brought another one. And I said, okay, this is for my brother right here. So How Brands Grow, my brother Omar Small right there.
All right.
Yes.
So good reading. All right.
Anyway, sorry to cut you out.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you, man.
Yes.
Thank you so much, man. And I'm such. I want to say I appreciate you.
Yeah.
And I appreciate our friendship. And
Yes.
Look forward to all the wonderful things coming down the pipe.
Absolutely. Did I talk about Grand Mayan? I didn't talk about. Grand
No,
Mayan,
please.
Yeah, I did. I did want to share that this is a new venture that I'm involved with.
Okay.
It's Grand Mayan Tequila. It's out of Jalisco, and it's extremely smooth and tasty, delicious, super premium tequila. Shout out to my business partner Carlos Monsalve, he grew up in, he's a tequila guru. So yeah, man, we're working, man. We're excited out here. So I had to get a brand plug in there.
No,
as well.
definitely.
This is the silver. That's the Reposado as well. So.
No, I appreciate that. Can we do this again?
Oh yeah. Let's do it, man.
All right, you heard that, America.
Yeah.
Chauncey said we could do this again.
Can we reverse roles? Can we?
I don't know about that.
No.
Let me ask you a question.
Oh, stay in my lane.
Yeah, let me ask you a question.
Stay in my lane. I'll stay in my lane.
Yes,
okay,
sir.
All
Yes,
good.
sir.
All good. Appreciate
Awesome,
you,
man. I appreciate you too, man.
Thank you, brother.
All right, man.
Yes, sir.
Do your thing.
Yes, sir. 914.